Aloha and welcome to the State of Hawaii Department of Health Developmental Disabilities Division Waiver Provider Standards Fiscal Accountability Training. There are some very important changes that we want you to be informed of and some reminders that you're already familiar with. The goal of this presentation is to assist you, our providers, towards being compliant. This training video is also available on our website so that you can refer to it at any time. The Centers for Medicare and Medicaid Services require states to complete a post-payment review as part of waiver requirements to ensure financial accountability. Financial accountability is one of the 6 mandatory assurances that the state must demonstrate compliance. This is achieved through an annual fiscal audit. States must conduct annual fiscal audits and report regularly to CMS to ensure that services are rendered and claims are coded correctly and billed appropriately. The fiscal audit will follow a 9-step process. Throughout this presentation, we will go over each step. Steps 1 through 4 pertain to the audit. Steps 5 through 6 pertain to appeal requests. And steps 7 through 9 pertain to remediation activities. Step 1, pre-audit. There are 3 different aspects within the pre-audit. The DDD fiscal section will send an audit notification letter to your agency within 30 calendar days. The audit notification letter specifies whether the audit will be done on site or by desk, and will provide instructions regarding the audit. Your agency will send the name and telephone number of a contact person as well as a secured email address to the DDD fiscal section prior to the audit date. The audit notification letter will contain information about the fiscal audit period, fiscal audit method, instructions on how to submit required documents, the deadline for document submission, contact information, instructions on how you will receive the list for participants, and a fiscal audit checklist. This is a sample of the fiscal audit checklist that you will receive along with the audit notification letter. As you will notice, the months and days have been removed. However, the process of completing the checklist remains the same. If using the checklist, please complete 1 checklist per participant, per service, per direct support worker. The next step is step 2, audit. Each provider must be audited annually. The DDD fiscal section may perform additional audits during the year if needed. On the day of the audit, the DDD fiscal section will contact the provider on the morning of the scheduled audit date via telephone to confirm the contact person is ready to receive the audit list of participants. The DDD fiscal section will then send an encrypted email with the names of the participants whose records are being audited to the provider's designated contact person. The fiscal audit will cover 3 consecutive months, 6 months prior to the month the audit is conducted. For example, if your audit date is scheduled for August 1st, 2020, your audit period will be from February 1st, 2020 to April 30th, 2020. If your audit date is scheduled for January 15th of 2021, your audit period will be from July 1st, 2020 to September 30th, 2020. The provider will have until 3 p.m. to produce copies of the required documents. All documents submitted after 3 p.m. on the audit date is considered late and will not be considered towards the initial audit. Documents submitted by mail for a desk audit must be postmarked no later than the audit date. The DDD fiscal section will call after 3 p.m. to confirm the number of pages submitted for fax and email submissions. And as a reminder, please do not send your original documents, as documents submitted will not be returned to the provider. Your agency must have a system in place to ensure all service documentation meets service documentation requirements. This includes that substantiated services were rendered, claims were coded correctly, and billed appropriately. Your agency will submit 2 sets of documents for each participant on the participant list. The first set of document is the Individual Service Plan, or the ISP. An approved ISP must cover the entire fiscal audit period. Multiple ISPs may be needed to cover the entire fiscal audit period. The second set of documents is the Participant Attendance Log. Service documentation must contain 7 data elements to verify that services were rendered and claims were coded correctly and billed appropriately. The 7 data elements are as follows. Number 1, participant name. Number 2, dates of services provided. Number 3, time of service provided. Number 4, type and level of service. Number 5, staff to participant ratio. Number 6, name and signature of the direct support worker delivering the service. Number 7, name and signature of the service supervisor verifying the service and the information listed above. Please note, a participant log outside the audit period may be necessary to complete the audit. For example, if you file claims weekly from April 25th to May 1st, and your agency's audit period is from February to April, then DDD Fiscal Section may request the service documentation forms for May 1st, although May is outside of the audit period. Step 3. Audit Results. The DDD Fiscal Section will determine a compliance score as a percentage and a compliance rating based on audit results from documentation submitted by the provider on the audit date. There are 3 possible rating results. The first type of fiscal audit result is 100% and it is considered fully compliant. The second type of fiscal audit result of 86% to less than 100% is considered substantially compliant. And the last fiscal audit result of below 86% is considered not compliant. Step 4. Post-audit actions. The audit report and letter will be sent indicating the provider's score and rating within 30 calendar days of the audit date. If funds are to be recouped, a recoupment letter will be sent as well. Based on the rating the provider receives after the audit, additional requirements may be needed as shown here on the table. For a rating of fully compliant, the provider will receive an audit report and a fully compliant letter with no additional requirements. For a rating of substantially compliant, the provider will receive an audit report, a substantially compliant letter, and a recruitment letter if applicable, and an opportunity to submit additional support documents that were not available or submitted during the fiscal audit date. For a rating of non-compliant, the provider will receive an audit report, a not compliant letter, and a recruitment letter if applicable, and will be required to review this training video and create and submit a corrective action plan. Appeal request options are available to the provider to submit additional support documents that were not available during the fiscal audit date. Step 5. Informal appeal request. A provider with an audit result below 100% will have an option to submit an applicable ISP or participant attendance logs that were not provided on the audit date by requesting an informal appeal. The request for an informal appeal must be submitted in writing with supporting documents within 14 calendar days from the date indicated on the initial audit report. Please submit all informal appeal requests to the Department of Health, Developmental Disabilities Division, Fiscal Section at 3627 Kilauea Avenue, Room 104, Honolulu, Hawaii, 96816. A request for an informal appeal received after 14 calendar days will not be accepted. If a written informal appeal request along with support documents is not submitted within 14 calendar days from the date indicated on the initial audit report, a recruitment letter will be initiated. If the supporting documents are determined by the DDD Fiscal Section to meet the requirements, the provider will receive a written response to the informal appeal request and an adjusted recoupment letter will be sent. If the supporting documents are determined by the DDD Fiscal section as not meeting the requirements, the provider will receive a written response to the informal appeal letter, and a recruitment letter will be sent. Please note, the initial compliance rating and audit score will remain unchanged because all records must be readily available, current, and organized. Step 6. Formal appeal request. The provider may also submit a formal appeal. Formal appeals are conducted by the Department of Human Services. The provider may submit a request for a formal appeal within 30 calendar days from the date of the recruitment letter. All formal appeals shall be submitted to the Administrative Appeals Office, Department of Human Services, at P.O. Box 339, Honolulu, Hawaii 96809. Based on the formal appeal decision, the provider may receive a final determination letter from the Department of Human Services. Step 7. Provider training. If the provider receives a fiscal audit rating of below 86%, they are required to review this training video prior to creating a corrective action plan. This training video will be made available to all providers on our website at health.hawaii.gov/DDD under the Waiver Providers Training Archive. Step 8. Corrective Action Plan, or CAP. The purpose of the Corrective Action Plan is to assist providers to meet necessary documentation requirements as indicated in the Waiver Standards Fiscal Accountability section. Providers with a non-compliant rating below 86% must submit a Corrective Action Plan to the DDD Fiscal section within 14 calendar days from the date indicated on the latest recruitment letter. Providers who do not submit a corrective action plan within 14 calendar days may be subjected to additional actions. Step 9. Follow-up audit. A follow-up audit will be conducted for all providers with a non-compliant rating of below 86% to ensure that the corrective action plan is implemented and issues identified in the corrective action plan are corrected. The follow-up audit will be conducted at least 6 months after the initial audit date. The same pre-audit and audit procedures will apply. However, the follow-up audit period will cover 1 month, 4 months prior to the month the audit is conducted. For example, if your follow-up audit is scheduled for August 1st, 2020, the audit period will be from April 1st, 2020 to April 30th, 2020. If a follow-up audit is scheduled for January 15th of 2021, your fiscal audit period will be from September 1st, 2020 to September 30th, 2020. If a provider receives a non-compliant result for a consecutive 2 years, the provider will be issued a letter of termination from the Department of Human Services, MedQuest Division. As we conclude, here are a few key points to remember. Ensure that services are rendered and claims are coded correctly and billed appropriately. Required documentation including ISPs and participant logs. Participant attendance log must contain the 7 data elements, which are participant name, dates of service provided, time of service provided, type and level of service, staff to participant ratio, name and signatures of the direct support worker and service supervisor. All records must be readily available, current, and organized. Please do not send your original documents for the fiscal audit, as the fiscal audit documents will not be returned to providers. Documents submitted after 3 p.m. will be considered late and will not be considered towards the fiscal audit. And last but not least, please do not make any adjustments to the claims by rebilling with Conduent after receiving a substantially compliant or non-compliant rating. Adjusting claims to match our audit findings is not allowed. For further information, please email us at doh.dddfiscalaudit@doh.hawaii.gov. Thank you for attending this training. Mahalo.